Hello students, I am Dr. Milan Tamang, and today the most important topic we are dealing is the Union Council of Ministers, and in this we will see or we will focus the main important is the Prime Minister of India. Article 74 says that there shall be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister to aid and advise the Prime Minister. And you know, the Prime Minister is normally appointed by the President of India, but the President have less choice, but he has to appoint the leader of the majority party or the coalition party to be the Prime Minister of India, right? And we have seen is that we have the precedence that the Prime Minister once appointed may be appointed from either house, that is from the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, or we have seen that a person may be appointed as a Prime Minister who is not being either a member of the either house, but he or she has to be re-elected within 6 months by the election. Right. So, normally Article 75 clause 1, it provides that the Prime Minister is appointed by the President of India. Normally what we have seen is that a member of the House of the Parliament is appointed as the Prime Minister, but we have no such practice or the convention that the Prime Minister may be chosen from either house. But in the case of Britain, what we have seen is that they have the practice to be appointed the Prime Minister as the member of the House of Commons, that is the House of the People. But in India, such practice is not there. So, a person may be appointed as a Prime Minister by the President, who is the leader of the majority party in the last general election or the leader of the coalition party. And what we have seen is that under Article 75 clause 5, under Article 75 clause 5 is that a member who is appointed as the Prime Minister may not be the member of either house, either the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, but he is to be elected within the 6 months to the post provided under Article 75 clause 5. Before that, let us classify the ministries. We are talking about the Union Council of Ministers. Normally we have 3 categories in the ministries. Number 1 is cabinet ministers, and your number 2 category is minister of states, and number 3 is your deputy ministers. So, we have these 3 types of hierarchies in the ministers. The first is the cabinet ministers, number 2 is the minister of state, and number 3 is deputy ministers. Let us see what these specific categories or the ministers mean, right? Now, the cabinet ministers, these cabinet ministers is a sole decision making part of the Council of Ministers, right? Usually the senior most members, right, with the independent charges, and they are very few in numbers, they are included in the cabinet ministers. Then the second category is your a minister of state. Minister of state constitutes the second category. We have seen that constitute its second category, and these ministers hold an independent charges of a small department. Understand, is an independent charges of the small departments. And the third category is deputy ministers. These deputy ministers are attached to the cabinet ministers or the minister of states as aiding ministers, right? So we have seen cabinet ministers, minister of state and deputy ministers. First category is the cabinet ministers, those who are the senior most members holding the independent charges, and the minister of states, second states, they are the charges of the small departments, and the deputy ministers who are attached to the cabinet or the minister of states to aid the concerned departments. Right, we have seen these three categories, but it's a very important point here to remember is that within these categories, the prime minister sometimes need very immediate or the very secret decisions, whom we cannot express in front of all the cabinets or the ministers concerned. But very few, the close aid of the prime ministers, 2 or 3, they have been kept to take the decisions, and this is very important, is known as the XII cabinet. XII cabinet. XII cabinet means the very few, 2 or 3 only, the most trusted, the most secret decisions to be taken by the prime minister. So these members are known as within that cabinet or within these ministries, it's a XII cabinet to take the secret decisions, and after taking any decisions, the prime ministers place this or discuss this matter on the cabinet or the council of ministers. So this is a small body within these categories. Cabinet ministers, minister of state and deputy ministers, very few from amongst the cabinet members, they have been chosen or taken decisions of the prime minister, is known as the XII cabinet. Now, article again 75 says that, or provided in the constitution, that the ministers hold office during the pleasure of the president, and they remain in office as long as they enjoys the confidence of the parliament. Now, it is clear that the council of ministers holds the office during the pleasure of the president, and they remain in office as long as it enjoys the confidence of the legislature or the parliament. We have seen the Union Council of Ministers, under which article it has been provided. We have seen the categories, and we have seen their responsibilities or their confidence in the legislature. Now, the important topic from the Union Council of Ministers is the Prime Minister. Now, let us come to focus on the Prime Minister of India. We have seen is that Article 74 provides that there shall be a council of ministers headed by the Prime Minister to aid and advise the President of India. So here what we have seen is that Article 74 is the creation of the post of the Prime Minister. The purpose is to aid and advise the President. Constitution creates under Article 74 the post of the Prime Minister. Then another important article we have seen is that Article 75. Article 75 says that the Prime Minister is appointed by the President of India, right? But the President cannot appoint whom he likes, anyone as the Prime Minister. You have seen that. The President have no choice, but he has to appoint the Prime Minister who is the leader of the majority party in the last general election or the leader of the coalition party would be appointed by the President as the Prime Minister under Article 75. Now, let us say you have seen that it is a creation by the Constitution under Article 74, the office of the Prime Minister. Then we have seen that by whom he is appointed by the President under Article 75, under Article 75, and after that we have to see the tenure, the term of office. Normally, once the Prime Minister is appointed, he holds office for a period of 5 years. But when there is an emergency, and then the term of the legislature, term of the parliament is also extended. During that period, the term of 5 years may be extended till the emergency is in operation, or the term of the Prime Minister may be reduced if he loses the confidence of the parliament or the Lok Sabha. Then the President can dissolve Lok Sabha. So, what we have seen here is the Prime Minister is the creation of the Constitution. He is appointed by the President and he holds office for a period of 5 years, but may be extended during the emergency or may be shortened if he loses the confidence of the House of the People. So, in that case, it is changeable. It is not fixed. Though Constitution fixed the period of 5 years, but in two cases, it may be extended or it may be come down to the term when it loses the confidence. Now, let us see the power and functions of the Prime Minister. There are different powers and the functions of the Prime Minister, but first and the foremost is, number one, is the chief advisor to the President. We have seen that the Prime Minister, once appointed by the President of India, he is the head of the Council of Ministers. Being the head of the Council of Ministers, he has the responsibility, or he is considered as the chief advisor to the President, as all the important messages, all the decisions of the Council of Ministers has to communicate or to inform the President. So, this is the first important function, is the chief advisor to the President. And you know, all the executive powers theoretically are in the hands of the President. We have seen that. But practically, India being a parliamentary form of government and the Prime Minister is the real executive, in practice, no matter, executive powers are vested with the President, but in reality, Prime Minister exercises all these powers. And next, what we have seen is that while appointing, we have seen that the President of India appoints, right? But President of India only do whatever the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers tell to do so. So, here the Constitution, our Constitution, we tell the supremacy of the Prime Minister's office, that we have seen is supremacy of the office of the Prime Minister is established. So, in the first function of the Prime Minister, what we have seen is that he is the chief advisor to the President once he is appointed under Article 74 of the Constitution. It is the responsibility of the President, it is the responsibility of the Prime Minister to advise, to render the advice to the President, and all the executive powers, no matter theoretically it has been with the President constitutionally, but while bringing into practice, this has been done by the Prime Minister. So, the Prime Minister's office, we have seen is that the supremacy of the Prime Minister's office has been established in constitutional Prime Ministerial constitution system in India. Now, the second function is powers to make appointments. What we have seen in the Indian parliamentary system is that all the appointments are done by the President of India. But you know, in practice, the Prime Ministers advise the President to do so. What we have seen in this case, in this power, is that the President of India appoints the governors, Auditor General, Attorney General, Chairman of the different commissions like the Union Public Service Commissions, Finance Commissions, Women's Commissions, so many commissions, ambassadors, diplomats, all they are appointed. The high officials, including the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court, are appointed by the President of India, but the Prime Minister advise to appoint or to do so to the President of India. So what we have seen is that theoretically or constitutionally, the appointing power has been vested with the President, but in practice, what we have seen is that ambassadors, diplomats, governors of the different states, chairmen of the different commissions, and high officials, they are all appointed by the President, but the Prime Minister advise the President to do so, and this comes under Article 74, that there shall be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister to aid and advise the President. Means now Article 74 makes binding to the President. He is bound to take the advice of the Prime Minister under Article 74. So we have seen in this case is that the President is bound to take the advice of the Prime Minister in appointing these high officials or high ranking authorities in India. Now come to the third point, is head of the Council of Ministers. We have seen that the Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. There shall be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. We have seen under Article 74. It means that it is a Prime Minister is considered as a primus inter pares, means first among equals, means the principle of equality is maintained. But in India, it is not so. What we have seen is that Article 74 says that very clearly, there shall be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, means Prime Minister stands apex or the top of the ministry. Here is no primus inter pares, means first among equals, but he is also at the top or the apex of the ministry. And what we have seen in the case of the functions of the Prime Minister is that, being the head of the Council of Ministers, all the ministers, Council of Ministers are appointed by the President, right? But the Prime Minister gave advice whom to appoint the Council of Ministers or the Cabinet. You have seen that we have three categories of the ministries. Not only that, the Prime Minister also distributes the different portfolios amongst the colleague, supervises, coordinates. All these are made theoretically or constitutionally by the President of India, but in practice, it is the Prime Minister behind the scene who makes President bound to oblige these advices to do so. So what we have seen is that the third power of the Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. As it is clear from the Article 74, there shall be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. It means the principle of primus inter pares, means first among equal, is maintained here. But what we have seen is that in case of India, the Prime Minister is kept at the apex or the topmost of the ministry. So, being at the apex, at the top, he distributes the portfolios. He gave the advice to the President whom to appoint to the different categories of the ministries, coordinates, supervises and maintains the coordinates among the cabinets by the President, though practically it is the Prime Minister, and it comes under Article 75 Clause 1. Now the next important function of the Prime Minister is the fourth, is the leader of the Parliament. What we have seen so far is, he is the leader of the government, he is the leader of the Council of Ministers, he is the chief advisors. Then the next is he is the leader of the Parliament. Once he is elected as the Prime Minister in the general election, he becomes the leader of the Parliament. And one interesting point is that in India we have the parliamentary sovereignty. Our Parliament is sovereign. But in fact, in practice, it is not the sovereignty of the Parliament. In reality, it is the authority of the Prime Minister. Means the Parliament revolves within the Prime Minister. Then what we have seen is that in the Parliament, bills are to be introduced, bills are to be enacted. We have seen that all the bills to be presented and enacted in the Parliament must be handled and taken the consent of the Prime Minister. This is must, this is required. No bills can be introduced or enacted without the consent, without the consideration of the views of the Prime Minister. In fact, he initiates. As I told you that, he coordinates, he supervises among the different ministries. So any bills, either to be presented or to be enacted, the consent of the Prime Minister is required. And as the leader of the Parliament, Prime Minister summons to call and prorogue, withheld the sessions of the Parliament. It is the authority, it is the power of the Prime Minister to summon or to prorogue. And it is very important that being the leader of the Parliament, he must maintain a cordial relation with the opposition. In a democracy, we need both the ruling party and the opposition party. But it is the Prime Minister, the sole responsibility with him is that he has to maintain very cordial relation with the opposition parties, right? And this definitely depends on his ability to control parliamentary majority and ability to have maintain cordial relation with the opposition parties. So what we have seen in brief, he is the leader of the Parliament. Once he is elected as the Prime Minister, definitely he is the leader of the Parliament. And we have in India is the parliamentary sovereignty. But in reality, it is not only the sovereignty of the Parliament, but it is the authority of the Prime Minister. Then any bills to be presented or enacted in the Parliament to become an act, the consent or the approval of the Prime Minister is must. He has the power to summon and prorogue the sessions of the Parliament, and not only that, being the leader of the Parliament. In a Parliament, we have seen that is a treasury bench, those who are in the ruling, and on the opposition parties are there, opposition benches, and it is the responsibility of the Prime Minister to maintain a cordial relation with the opposition parties for the better functioning of the democracy. And it depends definitely on the ability of the Prime Minister to control the parliamentary majority and to see the smooth functioning of the business of the Parliament. Another important functions or the powers of the Prime Minister is number 5 is leader of the majority party. We have seen, at first I told you that the leader of the majority party in the last general election are chosen or appointed as the Prime Minister, right? Now, once the leader of the majority party or the coalition party is appointed as the Prime Minister by the President of India, he becomes the leader, definitely he becomes the leader of the majority party. As being the leader of the majority party, the real strength of the party in power rests with the personality and status of the Prime Minister. Mind one thing, remember, he is not only the leader of the majority party, but being the leader of the majority party appointed as the Prime Minister by the President, the real strength of the party in power that rests definitely with the personality, skills, eligibility or the status of the Prime Minister. And what we have seen is that in that case, being the leader of the majority party in the House, in the Parliament, what we have seen is that he leads the party in victory. Definitely the success or the failure or their performance definitely depends on the performance of the Prime Minister or the leader of the majority party. So what we have seen is that leader of the majority party, being the leader of the majority party, the actual strength or the capability or the skills depends upon the Prime Minister. The sole responsibility to lead a victory in the election, that definitely depends on Prime Minister. Now, another important function, that is number 6, power or the function of the Prime Minister is the power of foreign affairs. You know, the Prime Minister plays a very decisive role, very active role in determining the foreign policy of the country in general and in India particular, right? He has a decisive role in determining foreign policy. Being the leader, the Prime Minister have the power to play as a key role in international peace and security. We have seen that. And definitely the nuclear weapons, we have this, how to maintain, how to regulate the nuclear weapons, and definitely another important is the human rights. All these rests with the Prime Minister, how to maintain these foreign policies. Then Prime Minister, being the head of the government, he represents nation on international conferences, summits, and in fact, or in one word, he is the prime spokesperson or architecture on international matters. So what we have seen is that the Prime Minister have a very decisive role or the decisive power in relation to foreign affairs. He is the chief person or the decisive role he has to perform in determining foreign policy, key role in maintaining international peace and security, in regulating the nuclear weapons, in maintaining the human rights at the international arena, and definitely he represents the nation. He represents the nation on all international summits, conferences, and in fact, or to say in short, is the Prime Minister is the chief architect or the spokesperson on all international issues or the matters. Now the last but not the least is the number 7, powers of the Prime Minister is the leader of the nation. What we have seen is that, in the general election, the leader of the majority party or the coalition party are appointed as the Prime Minister. But remember one thing, once, no matter he is elected by a single party or a majority party, he will not be only remain as the leader of that party, but he is the leader of the nation. No matter any party he belongs, once he is elected as the Prime Minister is for all, for the nation. So what we have seen is that he is no more only the leader that he or she belongs, but he is the leader of the nation. Now, the function or the power of the Prime Minister is that being the leader of the nation, it is the primary desire of the Prime Minister is to fulfill the needs, welfare of the people and to realize the public opinion. The first and the foremost duty or the power of the Prime Minister, being the leader of the nation, is to fulfill the desire of the people. He has to see the needs, the welfare functions, good governance, being the leader of the nation, and definitely it requires the personal qualities of the Prime Minister or the person who holds the office, his respect, love and commands that gives the strength for his government. So here, being the Prime Minister, he has got a sole responsibility not only be the leader of that party which he belongs, but once he got elected, he becomes the leader of the nation, and being the leader of the nations, first he has to forget the party he belongs, but he has to fulfill the desires of the people, no matter which party they belongs. But the basic responsibility is this, and definitely this depends on the personal qualities of the Prime Minister or the person who holds the office. The PM earns the respect or the love or his command definitely becomes the strength to the party in power or for his government which he is leading for in the government, right? Now, coming to the point one by one, we have seen that first we have seen the Council of Ministers, under which article we have seen. Then we see the categories of the ministries. Then from amongst them, I told you there are three categories: the cabinets, Minister of States and the deputy ministers. But amongst them, the very important I told you is that kitchen cabinet. Mind one thing, remember, these are not the categories made in the constitution, but the kitchen cabinet comes out of these cabinets. Only 2 or 3 very, very senior most and the most trustworthy of the Prime Minister, whom we can take the immediate decisions or secrecy of the governments that need not to be disclosed in front of the Council of Ministers. I told you that the kitchen cabinet is a very small body comprising 2-3 senior most and the most trusted colleague of the Prime Minister. They took the decisions and they placed before the cabinet or the Council of Ministers for the approval. We have seen that. That is called the kitchen cabinet. Now, from these Council of Ministers, we took out the Prime Minister. And I told you that the Prime Minister, the post of the Prime Minister is not an extra constitutional. It's not an extra constitutional growth. It's not a convention or a practice, but it is a creation of the Constitution itself under Article 74, Clause 1. What it says? Article 74 says that there shall be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. Kindly note this, headed by the Prime Minister. What to do? to aid and advise the president. So in the last class I told you that the constitution has given enormous powers. So many executive powers, legislative powers, financial powers, judicial powers, emergency powers. To whom? To the president. But by these Article 74 Clause 1, all these powers in real sense has been transferred from president to prime minister. Means while exercising these powers vested by the constitution to the president, he is bound to take aid and advice of the council of ministers headed by the prime minister. Here makes the prime minister the real authority, the real executive. And here we realize the dream of having parliamentary democracy in India. So we have seen this, and after that we have discussed the different power and functions. 6-7 functions. He is the chief advisor to the president. He has got the power of appointments. We have seen, I told you that theoretically or constitutionally the president of India appoints the governors, ambassadors, diplomats, comptroller and auditors generals, what not, the chairman of the commissions, different commissions like women commissions, human rights commissions, finance commissions, planning commissions, high officials, all these are to be appointed by the president. But Article 74 clearly says that while appointing these, the president has to take aid and advice. President cannot deny. He can't say, no, I will not take, I will not listen to the prime minister. No, he is bound by this article, making the lesser role in practice to the president and making the prime minister real executive. So we have seen these powers one by one. I have discussed you. Leader of the party, leader of the nations, he has got a very decisive role in foreign affairs. What not? We have seen that. And practically these are, while exercising these, the prime minister enjoys the real authority, real power. Mind one thing, the president is the nominal head, he is the ceremonial head, he is the head of the nation. On the other hand, prime minister is the real head, he is the head of the government. And definitely you know, being the students of political science, we have the parliamentary system of government. No matter we have the president here in India, but he holds the office as a ceremonial head, nominal head, titular head. And behind the scene, here is the prime minister who actually performs the real power or the real executives behind the scene, and he acts or he performs his duties under Article 74 to give aid and advice. I told you so many things, that he appoints this and that, president appoints governors, these and these, everything. He even appoints some of the members in the Rajya Sabha. If the members are not proportionately represented in the Rajya Sabha, the president can appoint 12 members in the Rajya Sabha. But remember one thing, he cannot appoint whom he likes. He is bound to do so only when the prime minister tell him to do so. So, focusing on all these, the prime minister, the categories, under which categories the prime minister comes, I told you that there are 3 categories and the kitchen cabinet is there, and come to the prime minister. The basic ideology or the principle is primus inter pares, means first among equal. Come to India, Article 74 clearly says that we have a council of ministers headed by the prime minister, means the prime minister is kept at the apex, at the top of the council of ministers. In that capacity, he has got a power to choose the different colleagues, cabinets, allocates the different departments, coordinates among the different departments, or he is so supreme that if any ministers does not find eye to eye with the Prime Minister or does not agree with the Prime Minister, then he has to resign. He has to resign, he has to be replaced. No, there is no questions of equality. He has been kept in the apex. Right? So, here the first among equals means he is the first. He has been kept as the top apex. Let us, in this light of these powers, let us analyze little bit the position, what the Prime Minister actually holds the position. We have seen that. I told you, in these you will get the answer. He is in fact is the real executive, real head. What not he will do? But he will not do directly. You know, the Indian administration, union administration is done in the name of the President. All the executive power are done in the name of the President of India. But behind the scene, it is the Prime Minister. In practice, he directs the President to do so. Considering all these, real power, in practice, with the Prime Minister, makes the Prime Minister is the supreme authority, the most powerful persons. But remember one thing, the actual power or the positions of the Prime Minister depends on the person who holds the office, on his dignity, capability and the personality. You know, we have experienced so many Prime Ministers, but here the post or the powers of the Prime Minister is same, whatever it is in the Constitution. But while implementing this, largely depends on the personality, capability, performance, integrity of the Prime Minister. So basically, no matter whatever be the powers of the Prime Minister, but here differs is that the person who holds the post, it really justifies the exact or in fact the real position of the Prime Minister of India. Thank you very much, and again dear students, we will meet in the next class with some another important topic. Thank you.